Welcome to Season 2 of the Shop Stool Podcast, a podcast for woodworkers and the maker community in general. With Joey Chalk from King Post Timberworks, Jordan Crawford from Periodic Furniture Studio, and Robin Lewis from RobinLewisMakes. Hi everyone, I hope you're all very well. This is episode number 7 of Season 2 of the Shop Stool Podcast. We've got Joey Chalk here with us. Joey, how are you today?
Yeah, good, Robin. How are you going?
Not too bad, thanks. And Jordan Crawford won't be joining us today or potentially for the foreseeable future. We'll have more details on that probably in the next episode.
Yeah.
My name is Robin Lewis, and I am very fired up for this episode. And if anyone's been following me on Instagram, you've probably picked up on what that's all about. Today we're going to be talking about steam bending. But before we do that, I just want to mention I've been away on holiday for the last week, so I've been a bit out of the loop. Joey, how's everything going in the shop? I haven't been catching up on Instagram much.
Yeah, I haven't actually. I've been so busy, and I think I mentioned a couple of episodes ago that I've got like 3 kitchens in a row to do. My Instagram would be really boring if I just kept putting pictures of plywood boxes up, and so I haven't really done a lot. I've got a little kind of table job on the side, which is part of the kitchen that I'm doing. So I'm actually going to be filming the kitchen build and the table build for the same kitchen kind of dining room area, and there'll be 2 different videos but one kind of space. I'm hoping that's going to work pretty cool. But yeah, as far as Instagram goes, it's just plywood at the moment. So yeah, I mean, we're crazy busy, which is really good.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to keep my lists in order and make sure I'm doing what I need to do to get things out the door. I must say that I've never made such good money before doing these kitchens.
Right.
And you can like making boxes and putting doors on them is like a pretty lucrative thing to do.
Yeah, screw fine furniture and fine woodwork. Just screw boxes together.
Yeah, it's really funny. Like, I mean, obviously I'm not in control of the market, but this year I've really had no inquiries for fine furniture stuff come in. It's just been cabinets, which is fine. And it's all plywood stuff, and it's all kind of nice, high-end cabinetry, I would say. But nothing like solid wood where I'm actually doing joinery, which is a bit frustrating. But the money is not in that kind of work either. So I'm kind of enjoying, even though it's a bit stressful, kind of enjoying the reward from it.
Because I guess redoing kitchens is something that would turn over in a community fairly quickly. People are constantly upgrading or building new homes, that kind of thing. Yeah, so it's all, at the moment I'm doing 2 new builds and a reno, and then I've just today had like 2 more inquiries for renovation cabinetry, and another renovation with a house lot of built-in furniture, which would be kind of cool because they want it all in arts and crafts style, so that could be interesting. Right. So
yeah, just work keeps pouring in at the moment. So good.
Yeah, well that's awesome. That's good to hear. Yeah, I've just been away for a week. We went. Was myself and an old high school buddy of mine. The 4 of us. My wife, the little one. We all went out. Did some diving. Just got away to the local island here. So it was really nice to get away for a week. And I said to myself during that week, that's it. No social, well, not no social media, but I'm cutting it. Social media, no YouTube, like not even thinking about projects, nothing, just put it down and just go away. And it was great. It was amazing how coming back, people always talk about, I feel so revitalized after a holiday and that sort of thing. And I've always thought that it's a bit airy-fairy. Yeah. There's not much in it. But I feel so much better having had this holiday and just not thought about anything. That's cool. That's the key that you need to do, is just put it all aside, and come back felt a lot better.
I wish I could do that. I can't holiday. I'm hopeless. I'd much rather be in a workshop.
Yeah, and I think a week is a good time. More than that, and you especially if we're in the sort of the social media game where we're trying to make that win. If you take a week off and you're a week behind, that's a huge hit.
Yeah, I think I may be on the opposite spectrum there, where if I'm going to holiday, like last time I really went on holiday, we went to Europe for 2 months, and that was just like completely lost all track of anything. It was. That's when I actually having that much time, and I was in another country. I could not do any work, and I was just like focused on taking in as much kind of everything as I could, taking in inspiration, I suppose. And so that worked really well. But I think for a week for me, I'm like, it's 4 days, only 3 more days, only 2 more days. Like, it's like
counting it down.
Yeah, but I think once I'm away for a week in another country, then I can actually relax, I think.
So since I've got back, I've been working on one particular project. Now, to put this all in perspective, a couple of weeks ago, Joey and I were talking after the show, and I was saying to him, I'm finding that the videos that I'm putting out on YouTube just aren't working as well as they used to. And something he said to me was, you need to try and push yourself, like show the audience that you are trying something new and you're on a journey trying to learn a new skill. And the topic we talked about was steam bending. And I just thought, well, that's interesting. Went online, had a look at some steam. I saw a coffee table that I thought was quite interesting. And it was only a couple days before that the Modern Maker, I think it's the Modern Maker podcast, put out the Rockler Bentwood Challenge. Yeah. So it was amazing. It was just planets aligning. So I thought, let me jump onto this, and started trying to steam bend wood. And that's pretty much what I've been doing for the last couple of weeks.
That's cool.
The first attempt that I tried was using PVC pipe. So you make the steam chamber out of PVC pipe, because I saw a couple of guys online doing it like that, and I thought that's interesting. They weren't necessarily using the PVC that I would buy, but I thought, PVC is PVC. Did a bit of research. Doesn't handle heat so well, but guys are doing it, obviously.
And folded.
It was, for the first time I had steam coming in properly. I thought, this is working, this is amazing. And then it just started sagging on either end.
Did it flatten right out, or did it just kind of banana?
It started flattening, but that was when I stopped it and realized, because I think 60 degrees Celsius is where your waste PVC gives in.
Of course, right,
So I had to put that on hold, and I had this janky, like a camping kettle on a fire, and this is what I'd seen online. I'd seen guys successfully doing this, and that was, I think, where you said get something with steam pressure. You want the pressure to force it in, and that's when I got my steam cleaner.
Yeah, right. That's interesting.
Use that
because they can run for quite a long time.
That's one of the main issues with it. I can get about half an hour, and then I've got to quickly
top it up,
which is it's against the guidelines, because obviously now you're emptying a pressurized. But if you do it quickly enough, you can get the water back in
and get it steaming.
But then your temperatures drop from 100 down to anywhere between 80, 85. So it's still hot.
Interesting.
It's still hot in the box.
Where did you get the idea of maintaining or having the temperature? It's something I've never come across, because like steam is hot. And so like I do it a different way to a point, but so maybe I should run down how I go about doing it.
I wanted to hear your experience, if you've had experience with it.
So I needed to do I've had several jobs, which are I think all videos, where I've had to steam bend some stuff. And so I was really trial by fire, but I kind of intuitively, I suppose, knew that I went down, I did think about the plastic, and I thought, no, it's going to melt. And then I thought, wooden box, we could make a plywood box, but it's going to get soggy and expand. And I actually have done some with plywood, and it still leaks, it's very leaky. And my initial thought is, you want to have almost like a pressure cooker. The more pressure you can build up in the chamber, the more the steam and the heat are going to be forced into the timber.
And with the pressure comes the heat as well.
Yeah. So I actually have got a giant galvanized pipe. And I got the guys to actually put a thread on the end at the shop where I got it from, and a big end screw cap. And I just have a hole in one of the caps where my steam, I've got a steam wallpaper remover steamer.
Yeah.
That hooks into one cap. And the other cap, now I'm aware that I'm essentially making a pipe bomb.
Yeah.
But you just need to be a bit careful about letting the steam out. So because I also orientate the pipe so the steam is not dead level. It's slightly raised, so the steam is traveling up the length of the pipe, and the top cap is only just screwed on, but it's enough that you can hear the steam. The steam actually has to hiss to get out. And so I'm actually creating quite a lot of pressure in there. Reasonable, not heaps, but some.
And the wallpaper steamer's got no problem with that, because it's obviously not used to having steam pressure pushing back against it.
It's not that much pressure, but it's enough where the steamer is really having to try to get out. It's not just falling out of gaps and holes that you would get on a wooden box. And the wallpaper steamer is awesome that I have. I don't even remember what brand it is. I think it's an old Stanley, actually. And it takes about 2 or 3 liters of water, and I can run it for probably an hour solid before I've got to fill it up again. But usually that's enough. I haven't had to run it longer than one whole tank of water.
Yeah, and that's what you want, is that consistency to be able to get that lignin to the 100 degrees where it's going to become soft and then stay there.
And that's what it's all about, is getting that lignin soft. And so depending on timber species also will depend on how hot that needs to be, and also how thick your pieces are.
Yeah. And
generally, if you're bending anything more than kind of 6 or 8 mil thick, you're going to be steaming for a while, and you're going to have issues unless you've got some mechanical bending solutions.
So I watched some videos of guys bending 20 mil timber.
Yeah.
Now, most likely they have got the best, as you say, mechanical sort of bits in place.
Bending forms.
Their steam is bang on. They're using the right wood. It's not completely dry. It's been air dried, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But seeing that video, I assumed it would be fairly straightforward to go ahead and do something 12. I think 8 mil was the first one that I tried. Yeah. And that just snapped. Like I'd done nothing to it. And everyone said to me in the comments, oh, it's too thick, you're using the wood that's too thick. And I thought, but it can't be, because I've seen guys doing it. But I think, as you say, it comes down to the species and the fact that the timber I'm using is kiln dried, which apparently, big no-no, you don't want to use kiln dried.
It's not ideal. All the bending I've done has been kiln dried oak or walnut. That's only because I can't get air dried. And I would greatly use air dried. The kiln drying process has already melted the lignin to a point, and remelting it and softening it can be a problem, because it's kind of it's already happened once, and it doesn't like to happen multiple times.
Oh, is that why you do?
That's
I've
my
never figured
understanding.
Out why. Okay.
Yeah. So it's already happened and cooled off again. That's my understanding. So if you've only got the choice of kiln dried timber, it does work. I've done it. It's fine. I think it probably limits the radius tightness. But I've still done 90 degrees with probably, what is it, maybe a 100 mil radius or even smaller. I mean, pretty tight.
Yeah.
That's with multiple pieces of, say, 5 or 6 mil oak.
Yeah. So I managed to get, I think my radius was a fair bit bigger than that, probably closer to 150. The first radius that I was doing was maybe 70 mil.
Okay, yeah.
Across, and I think that was something else, as it was just too tight for the amount of steaming that I'd done. It's interesting that, going back to the cylinder that you're using, a lot of research that I did suggested that you want the steam to flow through, so you're not really interested in pressurizing it so much. as long as the box heats up. So almost any video that you watch talks about you drill holes into it to get that pressure out so that the steam is flowing through. So it's interesting to hear you say, but I guess it would make sense.
The steam still comes out. The steam still comes out, but I think the more time the steam lingers in there, the hotter it's going to stay, and the more it's going to force in. So there's a couple of points I wanted to ask about. Well, for a start, the grain direction is pretty important. If it's not really, really straight, if you can see crowning on the timber where essentially is end grain of the timber, that's where it's going to want to split, and the fibers are going to start bending. So you really want quarter sawn straight as possible, ideally.
Apparently rift sawn is better, from what I've read. Sawn,
anything like that is straight as you can without swirly whirlies. What I noticed on my really successful bends is when I take the timber out, especially with oak, you can see that there's staining. The pigment has started running in it. The steam is pouring off it like it's just come out of the oven, literally, and you can't handle it. I mean, it's got to be crazy hot. It's got to be steaming crazy, and it's got to be floppy as soon as you start touching it. And if it's not kind of doing those things, it just needs to stay in the steamer longer. Yeah, so
that I didn't get it to that point. I got it probably close to it, but not to that point. So even on my successful quote unquote bends, you still on the apex, you still had the fibers busting out a little bit. You can sand those down, and you won't even see it. So you still get those fibers.
The way to limit that happening is to use a big piece of spring steel.
Yeah.
And that actually stops the fibers. It stops them being able to spring out. And so I don't have one because I haven't got any. If I had to do another steaming job, I'd go and buy a piece. But for the sake of
that steel, what you said, spring steel. Like so many people have said you got to do that. I ended up using a piece of fabric from a ratchet strap, which probably wasn't as great. But where would I get that type of spring steel from?
Well, I don't even think it has to be spring steel. It's just that spring steel is not going to bend to the shape of the mold or whatever form you're doing. And so you can use it repeatedly on different jobs. That's the idea. It's also going to it's going to bridge pressure gaps, so to speak. So it's going to maintain force on the actual piece that you're pushing on. So if you were to use, say, mild steel, it's going to create a nice even pressure over the back of the timber that you're trying to bend. But you'll need to force that in with a corresponding mold, I think, a negative of the mold.
Not just a clamp?
Well, because I don't think the mild steel is going to be like span the little inconsistencies. It's just going to bend where the clamp is. But the spring steel, you can actually, if you space your clamps, say 100 mil or 50 mil apart, it's going to take up the slack between the clamps and actually supply pressure where there is not a clamp.
Gotcha.
Where the steel is going to stop you marring the timber with the clamp face, but it's not necessarily going to add pressure, but it will stop the fibers bending out.
Yeah,
because they're hitting. So
so where would you buy that?
I just go to a steel supplier and ask for a strip of spring steel. Like, it should be in a sheet form. Probably it comes as a roll or a sheet form, and you could probably ask them to cut you a strip of, say, 50 mil wide strip or something like that.
Yeah, I might do that, because the project that I inevitably want to do, which is what these weeks have been. This is all just testing for the project. I'm going to be bending somewhere in the region of about 20, maybe 30 strips.
Right.
So it's going to pay to have those mechanisms in place, I reckon.
Yeah. So are you planning on glue laminating after you bend, or just the steam bends it?
So there's going to be the laminating afterwards. If you go onto Google and you search steam bending chair, there's a chair that the legs are arches. The big arches, and then between the two arches is a scoop of a chair.
Cool.
I think the design is fairly simple. I can see there's going to be a couple of things that I'll need to work out as I go, but I just think the design is really cool.
So you're going to make a bunch of kind of hoops
Correct.
And then join them together side by side for the seat.
Well,
and then
they're going to be slats, so they'll be spaced.
I see, yeah. Right.
But then for the seat, it's going to take about 3 strips, I reckon, to get to probably around 10 mil thickness would be it. It wouldn't be more than that. But then the legs would need to be probably up to around 20, 25 mil. And again, if you're working with 3 or 4 mil strips, you can imagine that's going to be a fair bit of bending.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds cool though. There's a lot of bending. Yeah. So my experience is that obviously people talk about springback, and I wanted to talk about it because with glue lamb you shouldn't have any springback. You definitely get springback from just steaming itself. Yeah. Generally, I've found, but the gluing up of the veneers shouldn't move if the steaming has been done properly and taken most of the stress out of the timber.
Yeah.
There's going to be some left in it, and my example is, I made skateboards for years, and skateboards are 7 veneers. It's pretty much your bent wood challenge right there. They do not move a millimeter when you take them out of the press. They're just dead straight, and they're bent in every direction you can think of.
Yeah.
And so it's the glue stopping the veneers from like sliding backwards and forwards past each other. Yeah. That's going to stop the springback. And so the harder the glue, depending on the application, the better that's going to work out for you. Obviously, in like a chair back where you want some spring, you don't really want a really brittle glue there, even though that might be the best option to keep things, like you wouldn't want an epoxy where it's going to have a bit of spring in it.
Oh, yeah. So if you're just using your normal Titebond, which is your Titebond original, which is basically like glass when it's
yeah, that probably would be okay. I think that's got a rubberized enough compared to like an epoxy, which is actually glass hard.
Oh, so you're saying the epoxy is okay? Because what I'm thinking is, isn't your Titebond 1 that dries very hard, whereas your Titebond 3 that's a bit softer, I think.
Don't ask me. I can't be bothered with the Titebond stuff.
But yeah, so you reckon PVA? What I did with those, I had 2 successful tests, and I actually after I'd done all that, I glued them together, and it was amazing, exactly what you're saying, and I didn't realize this is what was going on, but it obviously is. If you took one of those bends and you put it down, so you had the 2 points on the desk and you push on the bend, it just comes apart really easy. Right. I glued the 2 together. That thing could probably take my weight now. Yeah. It's amazing.
So the glue is like on a skateboard. I always used to say, you're not skating on a maple skateboard, you're just skating on glue, and the wood happens to be there so you can stand on the glue without falling through it. That's what's really holding you together.
So you reckon the PVA would be a good option in terms of that, giving it a bit of flex so that...
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when you want, like I did actually, most of the steam bending I've done, I think I've used, like I used to use Titebond 2 back then when I was doing all that, and it worked fine for me. So I made a rocking chair, made a couple of rocking chairs, and I think I actually think I used Gorilla Glue, polyurethane glue for that, and it worked fine as well.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's going to be coming up over the next couple of weeks. I put out the video where that was just yesterday or the day before, where actually that was just the testing phase, so just figuring it out. And it was quite funny watching back the edit. A lot of the times, and you'll know this when you make a video, you've watched that video back however many times and you're just sick of it by the time it gets published. I loved watching this back because I've got all the different tests. I do 5 tests, and in every test I clamp it down and then I pull, and then it goes quiet and you just hear this creaking as I'm pulling this back, and it's just the suspense was amazing. It was so cool. So fun to watch that. So that video's come out. So if anyone wants to see what it's the trials and tribulations of steam bending.
Yeah, I saw that you posted it, and I was meant to watch it and I couldn't because of the kids, but
so the next one will hopefully be putting all of that into practice with this chair.
Oh, cool. That sounds awesome. So how long have you actually got to complete with this challenge? I don't know how long it runs for.
End of October, I think. It's either beginning or end of October. If it's beginning, I'm probably a bit stuffed, but
yeah, right.
the end I could do.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, sweet.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Okay, so we had an email come through from, you remember Leroy? We've talked to Leroy many times in the past. Yeah, so he sent me an email with a question that I thought we could just touch on today. It's a bit of a long one, so I'll just get started on this, but right at the end is the actual question. So Leroy says, talking about designing, so he's designing pieces. At first, you just build whatever it is in your head. Then people might ask you to build a thing, and we'll be happy with whatever you come up with. Then you get proper clients, and they might give you a picture and ask you if you could build that in the space that they have. It progresses to you making drawings either on paper or SketchUp. Then people come to you and ask you to build something, and they won't be able to answer any questions of what they want. And I've had experience with this. That drives me mad. They want you to design what's in their head, or they have no idea at all. So now you really have to design it and show them exactly what it's going to look like. So this is where the question is. How much back and forth do you need to do? How do you make sure you build the thing they want? How much artistic license do you allow yourself? And what happens if you get it wrong? So I guess, and he's just gone on to say he's working in Fusion 360. It's a big learning curve. Hopefully it pays off. Thanks very much, Leroy.
Right.
So I guess the main takeaway is, from a client perspective, how do you start that design process when someone comes to you and says, I want a table, but I don't know what I want?
Yep. Well,
how would you deal with that?
I say go away and work it out.
So you demand some kind of a picture or some idea.
In the same kind of sentence, I want to say that I'm probably always a little bit anti the establishment, but in my eyes, the client is never right. All this talk about the client's always right, you do what they want. To a point, yes, you do what they want, but doesn't mean they're right. And I will always say, look, if you don't know what you want, you don't know what you want. You're just wasting my time. Yeah. And something I won't stand for anymore is to have someone come around and just not make a decision. So that is a complete waste of my time and their time. Go away. I don't want to talk to you. I think I've said this before, but my requests are, if you want something built, like today, lady rang, she wanted a new vanity. I said, great, send me a sketch, draw a sketch on a piece of paper with 2 dimensions on it, or 3 dimensions even, if you can do that. I need to know how big it is. Send me a couple of pictures of what you think it should look like when it's finished, and then give me a list of all the things you want it to do. Do you want to have LED lights in it? Do you want to have push-to-open drawers? Do you want to have a lacquer finish? Do you want to have wooden finish? Once you have done some homework for me, I know you're at least half serious. I'll draw something up based on what you've given me, and price based off that drawing. And then if you never hear from them again, you haven't wasted too much time.
Because that drawing that you've done, that's pretty quick. You can knock that together in
I can draw a vanity, a box. I can draw it in about 10 minutes. I can draw a box and call it a vanity. I can put a texture on it, and that looks pretty good. Put a shadow on it, looks pretty good. Say, it's going to cost you this much. And then if they run for the hills, and you say, well, that's good. I didn't waste too much time. Redrawing stuff is an absolute time kill. And what I will do, if a client says to me, okay, that's great, but let's change it. Okay, great. You can change it to a point. Like I just recently have been going through this saga of a job for these people who are in Australia, and they want this kitchen stuff built in Auckland, and they can't make up their minds, and so they've actually redesigned their kitchen like 3 times.
Jeez.
And I'm like, okay, they're like, yeah, we will do the job. We want you to do it. Send us a deposit invoice. And I'm like, well, I'm really uncomfortable with sending you an invoice without knowing what I'm actually making. This doesn't seem right. I need to have drawings.
They haven't finalized the actual design.
No, but they're like, we just want to book you in so we can get it done before Christmas. And I'm like, that's great. I would like you to have the job as well. But unless we know what we're doing, I don't want to start having money come in that I don't know what it's for. So anyway, the point of this is to say that after a certain point, and you have to decide for yourself, I will tell the client, now it's going to cost you for every revision. You're going to straight up pay for my time to redo these drawings. I'll give you a certain bit of leeway, some changes here and there. But if you then say, scrap this whole idea, let's start this thing again, or like with the kitchen, let's change all the door fronts from shaker style to tongue and groove style. So, okay, I can redraw all that and redesign what it's going to take, but now you're paying for the time.
Now you're on the clock. Yeah, because I guess that's what Leroy's sort of asking is, where is that line? Because the client is going to come to you and say, I want X, Y, Z. And that's going to be a very simplified version, because you, again, as the professional, going back to this, not believing the client knows everything, you as the professional is going to be able to say, well, that's great, but what about this, what about this, what about this? The client doesn't know any of that.
Yeah.
So there's that natural progression for that scope to creep and creep and creep.
Yeah.
So so you have a sort of a personal limit on when that happens. I guess
I think it's based on the job. Like, how long did it take me to draw this particular job in the first place? If it's just a box, fine, you can make 100 changes to a box. It's only going to take a couple of clicks of the mouse to send you a new image. But if you're talking about me making some kind of like for example, drawing a rocking chair and having to redraw that a few times, then now you're on the clock every time I have to touch it, because that's dealing with curves is not fun. In terms of being creative, that's when it can be tricky, because you want the job because you want some money for your family. So there's a point where you say, okay, should I just draw what they want and they can pay me for it and it's fine, I'll just make them whatever they want. And sometimes I do that, and sometimes I go, oh, now this job, these people sound like they're really in tune with what it's actually going to look like and feel like, aesthetically. And then you can start making decisions on, well, if we add this little detail, it's going to cost you a bit more, but it's going to look really cool. Yeah. And I think you've got to pick your battles a bit, where you actually put in lots of artistic flair and ideas versus let's just make what the client wants and they can have a square box that's boring, but at least I get paid this week.
Yeah, we talked about this with Nick in the beginning of this season about you don't want to just turn into a mindless drone, but at the same time you got to keep the roof over your head.
So I'm fine. Yeah, to me the jobs kind of come in like, there's no real rhyme or reason how they come in, but it seems like every second or third job there'll be, oh, this is cool, I can put my teeth into this a little bit, it's going to be a fun one. And then the next one, okay, fine, I'll make you a box with a drawer in it, that's cool. But then the next one, this might be a bit more interesting and in a particular style. Yeah. Especially when someone says, I want this in a style, you're like, oh, thank goodness, give me some parameters straight away. It means, all right, now I know, I've got some limits. But if people just say, I want something nice, you go, okay, what does your house look like? And what have you got?
I must say, I've had one customer it's only ever happened once, one client who was very open-ended, very frustrating, just really lovely people, didn't know what they wanted, and it was just a terrible thing to have to deal with. And as you say, just a picture, just a starting point, and then you can run with that.
Because if you don't have just even a hand-drawn sketch that's reasonable and a price to go with it, because if you hold off the price until you've done 10 revisions and then it's 4 times over their budget, I mean, how much time have you wasted doing that? You've got to know that the job is yours, and then you say, okay, now I need to draw in some details and make sure we're okay with how this is going to work, and are you okay with this part of it being like this? Because you've got the money in the bank at that point. I try to do as little as possible before I get money in the bank, really.
which makes sense. Sense. Leroy, I hope that answered your question.
Maybe.
But talking about quotes, I wanted to pick your brain on this, Joe. I'm having a real hard time at the moment. I'm trying to do some renovations to my house. Yeah. I've approached 10 different people, from builders to carpenters, etc.
Yeah.
2 people have come back with quotes. The first guy's quote was not what we had discussed.
Right.
I went back to him and said, could you redo it? He left it, because I really wanted to work with this guy, because he seemed like a really good guy.
Yeah.
He just never got back to me. About 2 weeks later, I rang up the office, spoke to the secretary. Oh, don't worry, he'll get back to you. He got back to me again with the wrong quote. So I've just said, well, he obviously is not. The second guy came back to me with a quote, and I was happy with it. And then he just disappeared. He didn't answer his phone. He didn't answer his text. Nothing. How is it so hard to find someone to do building work? I've never experienced this.
Well, it's funny. I was actually thinking about this lately because of how busy I am. And I was like struggling away through the day, and I kind of sat back and thought, oh, this is why you can't get a good builder. This is like the cliche, you can never get anyone to do any work, because they're all too bloody busy. And I understand now that when someone comes to me with a small job, I've got 3 giant kitchens on the go, and someone walks in and they want me to sandbag a tabletop. I'm like, I can't do it. Yeah. And I've been guilty of, in the last 3 weeks, ignoring a couple of emails. Just going, I can't deal with it.
Yeah.
And in fact, I did exactly what this guy has done to you, and I gave this guy a quote for this little stupid box to hold some chocolate bars, and he comes back to me and said, oh yeah, but you need to change the thing, you need to put it back on the thing or whatever. And I was just like, oh dude, I can't deal with it. If you want to start making changes at this point, I was going to squeeze you in. I said, no, I just can't do it, sorry, find someone else.
Yeah. I'm just amazed. Like I've never had to struggle to find a builder. I mean, so I'm going through the yellow pages, quote unquote, online. Yeah. Do I just go for the guy who's now got the lowest rating and the least reviewed and be like, well, he's my last option? I mean, I just can't believe you can be in a situation where you cannot find a builder who can work on your house.
I think it depends. There's a few things to take into account. Like one, what is the size of the works? Presumably it's not giant.
So I should also probably mention as well that, we had the flooding here in February. Right. So it's sort of understood that everyone is really busy. All the builders are busy because they're just fitting out brand new kitchens. It's an empty shell putting in a whole new kitchen. So I admit that my job is probably not top priority. But what I do want to do is change some of the footings underneath my kitchen, where I'm going to remove a wall, which I now need to brace because it's a load-bearing wall, and then I need to build another wall further down in the house. So, it's not going to be a cheap job. It's going to be a fair bit of work in it.
Okay, so straight away that tells me, presumably, as far as I think your building rules are pretty similar to ours, you're going to need to get some plans and have them be consented through council.
Correct. And every
carpenter, that's what you have to do first.
Every carpenter says to me, well, can you get some plans drawn? And I'm saying, well, I don't know how. Yeah, that's what I'm coming to you for.
No,
why can't
they
you
won't do it? Because they want the plans to quote from for a start. And in fact, to have a guy give you a quote without the plans, I would have walked away straight away and said, you don't even know what the council are going to require you to do underground. And you don't even know what's under the ground. You have no idea what you could find.
But isn't there a company or a body that I can say, I want this done, just make it happen?
Probably some big guys. Yeah, but they'll be too busy. They'll be doing big work.
Yeah, and I think that's where the
So what you want to do, you need to find yourself a draftsperson or an architect. Draftsperson is probably all you need, and that is someone who's not registered as an architect, but they have their license to draw what you need, the structural drawings. Any engineering work would be outsourced by either the draftsman or the architect.
Right.
So as a homeowner, it's your responsibility to find the architect generally. You would look through whoever you've got local, find someone, they'll give you some pricing guidelines. And you can say, okay, great, I want you to draw this up for me.
Pricing guidelines on the draftsman. Yeah. Okay.
And so for I don't know, I think our house, the little minor dwelling I built behind my workshop, I think it cost us about $3,000 to have the plans drawn and submitted. They did that, but that's for a whole house. There's a lot more work. There's a lot more work than a renovation. So they do that. They usually, part of their price would be submitting the plans and getting the plans back. Then you take the copy of the plans and you go to a builder and say, quote this work, here it is, email to everybody, email to 10 guys. Because then they know that it's work actually going to happen.
Interesting. I just assumed that the builders would take care of this for me. No, because
I know here, for a start, it's a minimum of kind of 2 months for the plans to go through the council system. So the builder's going to say, yeah, okay, I can quote you, but this work is not happening for months. It's kind of pointless me looking at this because I've got to work next week, not in 2 months' time.
Right. So when I've been, just before the final handshake, I've always been saying to the guy, either the builder or the carpenter, how soon can you start? And they've always been very very iffy. And I'm like, well, just look at your calendar and tell me when you're free. That's obviously why.
Because it's an open question at that point. It doesn't matter when they can start. When can you start?
Gotcha.
That would be my first thing. So you need plans, and then you need to find some recommendations, word of mouth recommendations, I would say. Ask people who you know have had any kind of work done, and get a hold of their builder, and then ask their builder, who's probably too busy, who they know who could help.
Yeah,
I would say.
Or go back to the guys that I've already spoken to and say, possibly, I spoke to a mate who explained this all to me, because apparently you need to have a master's degree on getting something built because the process is so complicated. And maybe now they'll be more willing to get on board.
But like, if someone came to me when I was building, if someone came to me in that same position and said, I want to dig out a foundation and shift a wall in my house, I go, great, I'll see you in 6 months. Because and by then you will get the paperwork done.
Gotcha. I was actually getting a little emotional about it, because I was sitting down and I was saying to Jamie, my wife, why is this so hard? I want to renovate my house. I have the money. I want to do it. Why is there this roadblock? And you watch these renovation shows where
you never see that part.
No, you never see that part. But you do hear them say, "Oh, it was this big journey and it was this emotional process." And I used to think, "What are you talking about? You haven't lifted a finger. The builders have done all the work." But that's where it is.
That's all the stress.
Yeah, it is stressful.
Like you say, there are companies who would do the whole lot for you, but generally it would be a whole house build. Like all you would do is give them money and go and drink your latte.
They're also probably going to be a bit more pricey, I would assume.
Absolutely, you're paying for the service.
Yeah.
Most people, certainly in our side of the world, the owner essentially becomes a project manager to a point. If it's a larger renovation, the building firm would have a project manager, probably just the builder, but sometimes they have a separate project manager, and they would take care of a lot of that. But they'll still be coming to you every 10 seconds with, what color do you want this? How do you want this? Do you want this or this? A, B, C, or D?
Cool.
Yeah. So that's my advice.
Well, hopefully by the next episode, I will have found myself the draftsman.
Yep.
And we'll be on this process. Because, I'm so excited. Potentially what I'm going to be doing is pulling out, obviously you can't see, but behind me I've got these 2 posts that hold up the floor. And what we're going to be doing is knocking out the 2 and putting 1 in the middle.
Right.
Which is going to be the new span for the load-bearing wall, or the gap above, which was a load-bearing wall.
You're right.
Bottom line is my workshop's going to lose 2 gigantic concrete pillars, and we'll no doubt get a small 75 or 100.
Yeah, just a steel post,
galv post through there, so more workshop space.
That'd be perfect.
Pumped. Yeah. So excited.
Awesome.
Cool. All right, everyone. Well, thanks very much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please go ahead and give it a rating on iTunes. That really does help us out. The Shop Stool Podcast is available on iTunes and most other podcast apps, as well as YouTube. My name's Robin Lewis. Joey, thanks for hanging out today.
Thanks, Robin.
Take care, everyone, and we'll see you in the next one.
See ya.